Hey, this is Zach Log the Great, and I am here tonight with my friend Nate.
Hello.
And we are joined tonight by the author and musician, and I can talk, I have a functioning tongue, James Fox Higgins, joining us actually from the other side of the planet, in Australia.
Yes, indeed. Lovely to be here with you, Zach Log the Great, and great to meet you, Nate. Looking forward to our chat. I've been mulling this one over quite a bit in the last couple of weeks to prepare for it.
Okay. Let's see. James Fox Higgins, science fiction author. He is currently working on the third book in a trilogy, which starts with The Ghost of Emily, and following is The Ghost of Della. What's the second one?
Delacroix. But it's an appropriate way to introduce it because throughout the book, the main character Delacroix has a great deal of trouble getting people to pronounce his name right. So I don't mind it when that happens. It's sort of foreshadowing of what you'll read.
And let's see. And also, he has a recent album you could check out, which is Logos Rising. And
that's right. So here's the book. There's the album.
And I will put links to where you can find all that kind of thing in the description. And tonight we are getting together to talk about Rudyard Kipling's poem, "The Gods of the Copybook Headings." So, James has agreed to read for us tonight. Before we get there, I did want to say quickly, if you like my work, if you enjoy what I do, please consider supporting me via subscribestar.com/zachlog-the-great. And again, the link will be in the description. And I also want to say a quick thank you to a few of my current supporters, Ann H, JB14, and DeadMessenger. Thank you for your continued support, and I hope you guys enjoy this discussion tonight. And having said that, let me get the poem up on screen for us, and James can read it for us. So let's see.
All right, I have it here for myself, ready to go as well.
And okay. Can we see it?
Yes.
Okay. Then whenever you're ready.
All right. As I pass through my incarnations in every age and race, I make my proper prostrations to the gods of the marketplace. Peering through reverent fingers, I watch them flourish and fall, and the gods of the copybook headings I notice outlast them all. We were living in trees when they met us. They showed us each in turn that water would certainly wet us, as fire would certainly burn. But we found them lacking in uplift, vision, and breadth of mind, so we left them to teach the gorillas, while we followed the march of mankind. We moved as the spirit listed. They never altered their pace, being neither cloud nor wind-born like the gods of the marketplace. But they always caught up with our progress, and presently word would come that a tribe had been wiped off his ice field, or the lights had gone out in Rome. With the hopes that our world is built on, they were utterly out of touch. They denied that the moon was Stilton. They denied she was even Dutch. They denied that wishes were horses. They denied that a pig had wings. So we worshipped the gods of the market, who promised these beautiful things. When the Cambrian measures were forming, they promised perpetual peace. They swore if we gave them our weapons, that the wars of the tribes would cease. But when we disarmed, they sold us and delivered us bound to our foe. And the gods of the copybook headings said, "Stick to the devil you know." On the first Fenian sandstones, we were promised the fuller life, which started by loving our neighbour and ended by loving his wife, till our women had no more children, and the men lost reason and faith, and the gods of the copybook headings said, "The wages of sin is death." In the Carboniferous epoch, we were promised abundance for all, by robbing selected Peter to pay for collective Paul. But though we had plenty of money, there was nothing our money could buy. And the gods of the copybook headings said, if you don't work, you die. Then the gods of the market tumbled, and their smooth-tongued wizards withdrew, and the hearts of the meanest were humbled, and began to believe it was true, that all is not gold that glitters, and two make four. And the gods of the copybook headings limped up to explain it once more. As it will be in the future, it was at the birth of man. There are only four things certain since social progress began: that the dog returns to his vomit, and the sow returns to her mire, and the burnt fool's bandaged finger goes wobbling back to the fire. And that after this is accomplished, and the brave new world begins, when all men are paid for existing, and no man must pay for his sins, as surely as water will wet us, as surely as fire will burn, the gods of the copybook headings, with terror and slaughter, return.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, James.
Pleasure.
So, this was actually the very first poem I recorded for this channel. Although it wasn't the first poem I memorized, but this is the first one I put up here. And I actually heard of this because of the political commentator Bill Whittle. I don't know. Are you familiar with him at all?
Yes.
Okay.
I've listened to a lot of his podcasts and such. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how it's kind of odd sometimes talking. I've talked to a couple people outside the United States, and I'm never sure like how much of our stuff, like how much of our culture is like going outside.
Well, put it this way: even though we're quite irrelevant to you guys, we are subjects of the U.S. empire, and so virtually all Australian culture is a kind of trickle down. It's like America, but add crocodiles, snakes, and spiders, that kind of thing.
Well, you might be up for a change of pace pretty soon. Might be China before long, so
That should get us back in shape.
Yes, Australia, home to like the most poisonous everything on Earth.
So they say, but I've been bitten. I've never died.
But let's see. But yeah, so like I said, I first heard of this one from Bill Whittle, and I, you know, I decided I should memorize it, and this was actually shortly after I began my YouTube channel. I started my YouTube channel right after the election of Donald Trump, and watching people flip out because he was elected president. And
last president elected.
Yeah, I called it too. I was like, this guy's going to be the last elected president of the United States, and yeah, what a fiasco. But I was the same. Like I was pretty politically apathetic until Trump came along, and my initial reaction to him was a very lefty sort of one, because that was the musical milieu that I was in, and absorbing the culture and the attitudes of. But somebody showed me Stefan Molyneux, and he started to unpack what was going on with Trump, and that just got me on the red pill slipstream, and it's sort of been an incredible descent into the clown world ever since. But it's I feel vindicated in the last couple of years by it all, because I've been commenting all the way through and sort of going, look, this is where this is heading, and giving my predictions and analysis, and most of it's turned out pretty close to right, if not spot on, and I think it's just we're surrounded by fools now and ruled by fools, so
And this go with the poem, if you we've set a new record, by the way, Sean, for our use of the catchphrase. Get back to the poem. You actually, allow your knowledge and your thought to go along with reality. It's not like you're not going to have, precision idea what's going on in the future, but you've at least got a bore sight. You're on the page. Lands the target, and you're going to be a lot better than people who are like, I don't know.
That's right. And I feel not so stressed out by the changes, because I feel psychologically prepared and materially to some degree prepared more than most. But it does relate very much to the poem and the themes of the poem here, because the reason why I've been able to see clear through the malaise of the leftist culture and the vision of the Brave New World that they're trying to bring about right now, as the poem, described as happening at that time as well. And I think it's an eternal battle. But I came to a clear vision of reality because, guided by people like Stefan Molyneux and by Vox Day and others, I've started to look back into history and read ancient wisdom, biblical wisdom, the workings of the Greek philosophers and the Roman emperors, and starting to look back and see we are not smarter today than we were 2,000 years ago.
We have fancier toys, but we're not actually that much smarter.
We're actually a lot stupider, and our vocabulary has significantly shrunk, and our nuanced use of language. They're not teaching this sort of poetry to kids in school, and that's a shame. They are in my school. But yeah, the idea of ancient wisdom being ever present and available when we inevitably find out that our ideas of social progress are retarded and built on lies. I think that's sort of the nutshell of the poem.
Well, actually, I think the nutshell of the poem is something that, interestingly, Bill likes to talk about, which is that you can have it good for a long time, and you can have it so good that you can deny basic truths, but eventually reality is going to come up and knock you upside the head. And so that, you want that to happen sort of quickly, you want ding, 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 because the further it has to come around, the harder it hits you.
Yeah. Well, the bigger the delusion is that is being destroyed, and that can really unravel people when their delusions are destroyed.
Well, and another part of it's kind of like, if you have some kind of injury, you can, take measures to treat it. You can take measures to heal it. Or another option is you could take painkillers. And the painkillers make the pain stop. They don't make the injury go away. And if you take painkillers without actually treating the injury, what's happening is you're probably making that injury a lot worse.
And getting painkillers.
And so, I kind of think that's, you could point to a number of things in our society and say, well, these are kind of the cultural painkillers we've been taking, and they've been making the pain go away, but the injuries are still there. And we're kind of making them worse.
And no amount of hopeful rhetoric, as the poem indicates, can undo reality. You can spin it however you like with wizardry, but it doesn't actually change reality. That exists independent of human lies. And lies actually only exist in the human mind. They don't exist in material reality at all. There's no contradictions in reality.
One of the things I love about learning truth. And one of the most frustrating things about dealing with people who are subjectivists. Like, I told a guy one time, he said, I don't really like that. And, I was laying out something, was like, this is factually accurate. And he's like, I don't really like that, though. I was like, well, I mean, buddy, with all due respect. I was like, with all due respect, the truth is like, the truth doesn't care. So
facts don't care about your feelings.
Yeah. I was like, so your feelings about the truth have no bearing on its truth.
Yeah.
And so
he liked it even less after that. And most people are slaves to their feelings.
Yeah. I actually.
This is in the poem too. Sorry,
wait,
go on.
Nate, yeah.
Yeah, no, I actually have an essay about this on my poor artifact of a YouTube channel. It's called The Roots of Reason, if you want to look it up. But I talk about how subjectivism is poison to being able to operate in a rational way.
Yeah.
That's actually one thing I find kind of interesting about the poem. Where is it? Where do I have it? In the one stanza, till our women had no more children, and the men lost reason and faith. And
you are here. You are here now.
and the other thing though, it's like the way people tend to talk today, reason and faith are opposites. But like if you look at what's actually going on in society, like, you know, a lot of society over the past several decades has lost faith.
Yeah.
And like at the same time, and I guess it seems like it takes a little time to catch up. It's not immediate, but like shortly after we start losing touch with reason as well. It's like
Yes.
if
Well,
the
there is no reason without faith. Faith is the foundation of reason.
well,
Yeah.
and you have and
It's
you know
the
for
it is faith that conditions you to accept unalterable truth that is outside of yourself, and from there you can go, okay,
Yeah.
well, if that being the case, I have this bedrock I can anchor to, and then I can
Yes.
build up from there toward other things, and I can learn to condition my mind to accept things and to,
And to
take the
rely,
pieces.
to trust in the rhythm of life and rely on things being stable. That's faith, but it's rational faith too.
well, and it's also yeah, it's also part of the, you know, the way Christians view the world, because, you know, we believe that, you know, God, that that you know, in the beginning was logos,
Mm.
and in the beginning was the word, and the word was with God, and the word was God. That God is, you know, God is reasonable. God is that our mind, that the reason we use is a reflection of His mind.
Yes.
That we're, I mean, obviously we are, you know, imperfect and messy, but, you know, if the world is the creation of a reasonable creature, then our reason can get a grip on the world. But if the world either is, or if the world is, you know, the product of, as in Islam, a uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Capricious is not quite it. But if the world's a creation product of a God who's not bound by reason, or a God who reason doesn't have a part, you know, then
Yeah, and a
our
faithless being as well.
yeah, and if the world just happened, well, then who knows what can happen, you know? And the idea that that what's in our minds bears some relation to reality, well, that's just kind of a maybe, but we don't really have a reason to say that
Well, we
if the
can't
world just
function. It's
happened.
an axiom. It's sort of like a natural axiom that we can't function without. And even if we say we don't believe it, even if you say, "Oh, I think it's all a dream and it's all a delusion," you still act as though it's real and stable, and you're building from that foundation of there being an objective reality that you can navigate your way through. If you didn't believe it axiomatically, you'd be a raging lunatic, and I guess maybe some of them are.
Well, and like it said, men lost
There's
reason and faith. Nate.
Yeah, yeah, and we're only beginning to see the kind of depravity that's to come. You know, as the bottom of this thing falls out, called civilization. But you know, reading this poem again, um, Kipling was a really important part of my family because my grandparents were born and raised in the Raj in India. And they were, you know, they grew up reading his stories, and so they read them to my father, and my father read them to me, and I've got their old copies here still. And you know, Kipling, the Jungle Books especially, were a profound part of our lives, and he was really respected and revered as a commentator, as an author, as a poet by that generation. And he was I believe he won a Nobel Prize for his writing, and he was the poet laureate of the United Kingdom during his time. So he was utterly, you know, top of his game, successful British Raj author. And today, if people firstly could understand this poem and what it's saying, which is, you know, very, very few will be able to understand it without doing some research, and very few, even fewer, will have the patience to do the research to find out what all these bits and pieces mean. But if they did understand it on the left, they would ban Kipling, and he will be on the chopping block. It's Dr. Seuss today. Kipling will be on the chopping block because a lot of stuff in his writing, like that poem of his, especially when the Saxon learned to hate, which I believe was originally called When the Briton Learned to Hate, I think.
Yes, if I understand. Let's see. It was The Beginnings was the original title, and
that's right. Yeah.
Sometime since then, I'm guessing someone in kind of a dissident right kind of movement tweaked it a little bit to make it a little more
palatable.
To make it a little a little more widespread.
Yes, but you dig a little and you find out it's originally very much about what the white man is experiencing today. So Kipling, I would argue, was a prophet of his time, whether he knew it or claimed it or not. And simply in that he was extremely intelligent, worldly, and made sober observations and shared them in really good writing. That informed his generation and the generation after him, which was my grandparents. They were worldly, intelligent, faithful Christian people who, believed in king and country and tradition. And we laughed at them, as millennials, and my boomer parents laughed at them and mocked them for it. Because the TV and all the culture was telling us that we've got these new ideas and the moon is made of cheese now, so all is going to be fine. It's going to rain cheese and everyone will have a UBI for the rest of their lives and just sit around watching porn and eating Cheetos and getting paid for it. Isn't this great? It's exactly what he predicted. It's exactly as he laid it out. And when he's talking, I guess, there's a couple of specific things at the basis of the structure of the poem that we should point out in case people aren't familiar with it. But copybooks were the things that they would get students to write in proverbs and lines of scripture over and over with perfect penmanship, and it was to develop their character by having them repeatedly absorb the wisdom of old as well as develop their penmanship. And so when he's saying the gods of the copybook headings, he's talking about the proverbs of old and the wisdom of old and tradition and the Bible, those sorts of things, over the new and the progressive, which is being offered up.
Nate, you've been wanting to say a couple things.
Well, just what I wanted to say is, you let this perfect progressive vision, porn and Cheetos, and that being, all you got to do. And I'm like, God, I hate those people. That is the shallowest, stupidest existence. Yes, I want to consume and just sort of, idle my life away. This is supposed to be the good life? Is that what you find fulfilling? Is that really,
if you're
and true?
And if your soul has been crushed over generations of propagandization of self-loathing, then yeah, it's a sickness. It's a real psychological sickness.
It's like, look, you're going to be miserable.
Yeah.
You're going to live a short, miserable, sad life and die to suicide, and no one's going to care.
Yeah, so it's a bit eugenic in that way.
What did you ever do? I'm like, okay. Ooh, I did not ever understand. I started to understand what, purpose and satisfaction and, true fulfillment could be when I got married. But I didn't really get it until I think my second kid. I look back now, right, at the evenings and weekends I spent as a single man or a newly married man, with no kids. And I'm like, what did I do with all the time?
Civilization 2, 3, and 4.
If I had all that time now, I would not know what to do with myself. I'd be like, I got
still not enough time. Still have it all back. It's still not enough. It's too much.
No, but
to do.
this whole thing, right? I spend so much of my time now providing for my family and helping my wife, to raise our children when I'm not working, that I get like a couple of hours in the evening that we can spend with each other and enjoy each other's company. And then I get like a couple of hours to myself before I need to be in bed before work tomorrow. And you know what? I am far, far, far happier now with this very small time. Far happier than I ever was when I had the whole day.
Yeah.
You know, like if I wasn't working a given day, I could do whatever I felt like doing for 14, 16 hours straight. Didn't matter what I was up to. And that sucks. Purposelessness sucks. And so all of this, all of these things, all of this breakdown turns people inward and makes their purpose their own satisfaction. But the problem is that you're not going to find satisfaction in yourself.
Yeah.
You can appreciate yourself. You don't have to hate yourself. You don't have to loathe yourself. If you satisfy yourself, you're not meant to. There's two things, all right? Man had woman taken out of him. And it's that union that really allows us to begin to feel fulfilled. And then we were given a command that out of the reunion of who we are, and women were taken out of men. And so they want to be back a part of that. We crave each other for that wholeness. And from there, we can build purpose. We can build good things. We can fulfill what we were made to do. All right. Beyond that, so you're never going to just satisfy yourself. Beyond that, serving others is what we were made to do. All right. You learn that a lot when you have kids, is that, you know what? Helping out this tiny, helpless little thing that is half me at its most basic level is amazing. And you know what? Maybe doing things, just helping people survive with no expectation or desire that I'm going to get anything out of it other than the doing of it and the helping this person survive. Maybe that's a noble calling. Maybe that's something I should be doing more often outside of my own walls. Maybe I should be reaching
Well, there's no maybe about it for me. It's a command from God, uttered, with his own mouth. Love thy neighbor as thyself. It's the highest calling. It's what we're here to do. It's the point of Christianity. Because like you say, that familial love being extended beyond the family and into seeing every other human being as a sibling in the family of God, that's when miraculous logos-rich civilization is possible. And it's the degree to which we fail to do that we stumble.
That's right. And you know what? That is when you don't need governments. That's when you don't need a whole bunch of laws. That's when you need 10 commandments,
And we've got the king. Let's all do what that says. And he says, follow his commands. We'll be sweet.
Let's see. The first 5 say this is how you deal with God. The second 5 say this is how you deal with everybody else. And if we can do these things, even most of the time, we're going to be great. We don't need a king. We don't need a king. We don't need Pharisees. We don't need any of them. All we need is all of us to get together and serve, look outward, turn your eyeballs the way they're supposed to point.
Try not to be like Cain and Abel. That seems to be a spirit that really remains for all of us. I see it all the time, the quarrelsome, jealous nature of us to seek conflict, especially with people who we ought to have higher regard for, like our own brothers. It's an astonishing pattern to see recurring, but that's our fallenness, right? As we echo these spiritual lessons that are just going round and round and round. And the circular, cyclic nature of our own individual experience in life, as well as the macro-societal cycle that we see if we look far enough back, which is what they're telling people not to do. They're saying, don't look back into history. Forget history. It's all a lie, and it's all by white supremacists. So burn it down, destroy it. Let's start from zero and make our own history from here and lose all of that copybook heading wisdom, lose all of that tradition and the hard, painful, bloody learnings of our forefathers who gave us civilization, we're standing on the backs of giants, like we didn't build this thing and we really don't quite know how to improve it, which is why it's degenerating. So
Well,
I think looking back, we get the long view, we see the cycles, and then this poem makes me actually just trust the whole process. It's like, well, now we're in that stage of decay and collapse where we're going to learn. People are going to wake up. Some of us are a bit further ahead of on the curve, but we're going to learn now, and that's great. So what can we do right now to prepare for the rebuilding phase, whether it's our children or us or our descendants far from now? How can we prepare them with this old wisdom? And for me, it's making sure we have paper copies of Kipling in libraries and some kind of ark of knowledge.
Nate, go ahead.
But I say homeschool. Don't give your children over to people who are going to teach them things that you don't agree with. I took a look at education today, looked at my baby boy laying in his crib and said, you know what, son? Somebody's going to indoctrinate you. And it's going to be me. You're going to grow up. I said, you're going to grow up with just a hard-fisted certainty that, no, you know what? The things I know and the things I believe are right. And you can help me to modify those and to sort of polish them. But you're not going to take them away from me or break them because they've been proven over and over again. And so they're going to start off front-loaded with wisdom, ignore the hell out of it for a while because they're going to be like, I don't know how to actually use this, but they'll have it. And then as they get older, they're going to be like, oh, yeah, that's this thing. And, oh, yeah, I put these two together and I get the thing I need now. And then I can sort of, wrap this around it and then I can hang on to it better. And, hey, all right, I can make it through life instead of being like, oh, my God, my gender studies degree.
Thanks.
Yeah. So when you're 15, your dad's an idiot.
Torchbearers, right? We're supposed to be the torchbearers of the wisdom of our elders, if they had any. And maybe if they didn't share much of their wisdom, they may have shared their library at least. And I think it's this preservation of old writings is a really important aspect of it. You can't come back to the gods of the copybook headings unless you have the contents of the copybook headings in a way that's preservable.
It's so to use our phrase, to get back to the poem, I have to say the one fascinating thing for me about Kipling, and it's a little bit like Mark Stein in this, and currently it's really impressive to me that he can be talking about these big civilization-wide concepts and still have this like emotional punch that can give me chills, because there's the other poem I did a while ago, The City of Brass, which honestly I think I kind of like better than this one. If you haven't read that one, you need to look that up. The City of Brass, by Rudyard Kipling. But in this one, there's this moment. They always caught up with our progress, and presently word would come that a tribe had been wiped off its ice field, or the lights had gone out in Rome. And it's like, this tribe
Kipling
of Eskimos,
knew.
this tribe of Eskimos, they're gone. But it's just this tribe. Oh, by the way, that great city of Rome, that greatest of human accomplishments at the time, that's half burned to the ground, and their government, their society is done. And just that little bit right there, I get to that line and I just, like I said, it gives me chills, and it's just like,
and it gives you chills because what you're seeing is that we should have known, we did know, our elders knew, they even warned us, they put it in print so we wouldn't forget, but the enemy got in and made us forget. And now you guys in the US are watching the front edge of the curve of the lights going out in Rome. America as a civilization is now in full tilt collapse. And it's going to become something new after this. But now's the time to be ready with the copybook headings to refer to.
Well, and it's also
the collapse gets deeper. It's not going to be time for copybooks at all. It's going to be time for ballistics tables for a while, and once
but I mean after that, yeah. After the transition is complete, you can think about positive creative mode, which will happen eventually. Then you need something to lean on.
Yeah, and the idea that we have to pass on this knowledge, we have to preserve these things, and that's really important. And behind both James and myself, you can see a little bit of our libraries. One of my friends, Lewis, who came on, who covered another one with us recently. He said he thought it was a green screen at first. I'm like, no, this is my real books. But there's this trend today in a lot of forms to in books, movies, video games. Everything is this digital, in this digital form. But the thing with that is, if you have, it's really convenient. It's amazingly convenient. But at the same time, if all you have is an electronic copy that was leased to you through Audible or through Steam, they can make it go away at any time.
And it's encrypted too. It's also encrypted. So what that means is it's not going to be a very useful remnant of our current civilization and culture for archaeologists to look at in the future. Even if the data is retained, if they don't have the understanding of our file format systems and the binary language of computers and all of that, it's harder to understand it than if it's just written text. And the book can't be switched off by a solar flare. Obviously, it can be destroyed by fire, and it has its own vulnerabilities. But I think
someone has to actually come
multiple
and do
formats
that.
is good. That's right, and they do. I mean, Alexandria's library is the ancient example. They do try to come and wipe out the memory, and people don't understand how psychotic the left will get if they continue to gain power in the West as they are. They don't know what happened in Russia and China a century ago. They don't know just how absolutely ruthless the communists will be in trying to wipe out every vestige of traditional Western Christian civilization. They want it gone. Their mission is to destroy it.
I think they do know. They say out loud that they wish somebody would do these things.
That's right. So basically, we need a decentralized global library of all of this kind of writing.
Yeah, and it's also kind of interesting if you get into he has there's three stanzas in the middle that are about particular issues that the gods of the copybooks were talking about, and it's kind of interesting taking a look at those. They swore if we gave them our weapons, the wars of the tribes would cease. Now, in America, this one has. In America, this one has a rather different reading than most of the rest of the world, because in most Western countries, there's already pretty heavy controls on what ordinary citizens are allowed to have, whereas in America, we have our guns, and no, you're not taking them from us.
Well, except that they are, and they've managed to get a whole bunch of sneaky laws through that are in contradiction to the Constitution. And Biden's he's already working on it and will continue to. I'm not saying it'll succeed, but absolutely their intention is to propagandize and then use the force of law to try to disarm Americans, especially right-wing Americans. That's coming.
Let's get one. I always find myself wanting to have to stick to this this philosophical point here. whatever they do, they won't be using the force of law. They might be using the force of government, but the law is not on their side because the law in America flows from the Constitution.
Yeah,
Any
fair
law
enough.
that
Yeah.
is counter-constitutional is
The
not
force of
actually a law.
the force of an illegitimate law that they're parading as law, for sure. And I agree. Yeah, if it's in contradiction to your constitution, then it's not law. But that's the America you live in now. It's like you've got these reams of law
You're
that are
absolutely
unconstitutional.
right.
And
No.
and you know, so that's already, that's in the poem, and that's happening in America now, and it'll get worse. The feminine sand studies one's great. You know, that's looking at the
Yeah.
sexual liberation of women, and you know, like probably universal suffrage comes under that too. And look, you know, look how it ends in social and moral decay and the demoralization and the breaking down of intelligence and reason of men in society.
It ends with
go ahead.
wow.
Go ahead.
It ends with wow. That's where civilization ends. Cardi B's WAP.
Oh, it's. I actually haven't heard this, and I am fine with that. I just have
the closest I got to hearing it was listening to Ben Shapiro read the lyrics, and that was the single funniest thing I've ever seen on the internet.
Yeah, that's
but I'm like, this is disgusting. Like, this is really gross.
Well,
it's worse now, guys. It's been worse than that now already. I can't remember his name, but the guy has done this full satanic cult of self, being sodomized by the devil or sodomizing the devil or something. Awful.
There's it's actually
brimstone, please.
It's actually kind of funny for me personally because finding out that what was it? You know, okay, so to my generation, okay, the Catholic Church, you know, forbids contraception, and like to my generation, that's just this kind of weird Catholic thing. And then when I found out that up until the 1930s, that wasn't Catholic, that was Christians. Period. That was all of Christians had that rule, and I'm like, wait, what? And you know, and that was actually the first step in me becoming Catholic. But it's also one of those things where, like, if you haven't gotten to the point where we are now, the rule seems kind of stupid. Like, why? Well, I mean, you know, why can't people do that? It seems like it should be fine.
But why can't I have all the candy and all the sex and none of the babies and none of the responsibility? Why can't I just be paid for existing?
But why? But it's not obvious like why there was this rule until the rule's gone away for, you know, a good, you know, in our society 50, 60 years now. And then you see, oh, that's what happens when we get rid of that rule. There was a reason for that.
And it's ironic in a way, because I'm advocating for a way to try to avoid the same mistakes being made, right, through this preservation effort. And it seems that that's what Kipling is suggesting, but he's far more cynical and weary of the world than that, because he ends with saying, you know, that there are only 4 things certain since social progress began. The dog returns to his vomit, the sow returns to her mire, and the burnt fool's bandaged finger goes wobbling back to the fire. He doesn't believe that humanity can escape the cycle of forgetting and decay and then restoration. So, you know, where do you guys stand on that? Do you think it's possible to prevent it?
No, I don't. I think that what happens is that we, like he says, you know, we moved the spirit listed. They never altered their place, being neither cloud nor windborne like the gods of the marketplace. But they always caught up with our progress. And presently, word would come, tribe and Rome, right? So well, I mean, it's like being a kid, right? I heard one of the most true things I ever heard was when you're 15, you think your dad's an idiot. When you're 25, you realize your dad's a genius. Okay. It's that we get all full of ourselves and we're like, we know everything we need to know. We don't need all these stupid rules. That was for lesser people. And you go streaking off into the distance. And here comes, you'll run off with your whole deal. And the truth just sort of keeps on rolling along. And then eventually your dumbass falls down and breaks your leg and you're stuck there on the side of the road going, oh God, it hurts. Why? And then the truth comes up and be like, remember that thing I told you about? You just fell on it and broke your leg. Helps you up. And then if you're smart, you stay at the pace of truth. But if you're like most people, me often enough, you go, neat, my leg's better. And then here comes truth a while later. You broke your other leg.
Just bandage it up and touch the fire again. You'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, so no, I think Kipling's cynical sort of dark prophecy is 100% accurate.
Yeah,
because
there's
he's a man who he saw a lot of things, he knew a lot of things, and he was a scholar of these, of the human condition, and he is absolutely on point. I think his observations will remain valid as long as humans remain humans.
Well,
and he also knew
wholeheartedly, and I'm actually intending to get a nice print of this poem and frame it and put it on the wall in my little family museum here, because I think it's really one worth absorbing for my children, because it's spot on.
So there's so Nate, what you were saying a minute ago, there's a quote that's attributed to Mark Twain, but Mark Twain is one of those people that people just if they don't know who said it, they tag it on him.
Like Einstein. It's the only Mark Twain's the only literary name they know, and it makes them sound smart if it came from Twain. So,
but the first attribution here someone found is actually relatively close. It was in 1915, so that's not that far after him. It reminds one of something Mark Twain said to the effect that when he was 17, he couldn't bear to have his father around while they were discussing important questions. But when he was 25, it was wonderful how the old man had improved.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Folks are going to tell you Mark Twain said this, but he totally did. It's like, but he certainly did not. Mark Twain.
What was quotes found on the internet are frequently misattributed. Abraham Lincoln.
That was like one of the original memes, I swear, of the internet age.
We've been around. But just, like I said, I don't want to, through all this, to think I'm anti-progress. There are good things that have come out of, people herring off into the distance, or maybe jogging a little bit forward. Like I said,
it's good to send out a red shirt before you send anyone important on a mission.
Yeah, the thing is, you don't want to run a little forward. That's okay. Don't get out of earshot of truth. Let truth guide you. So we're trying to get to the moon, so we're jogging a little ahead, and truth is like, hey, maybe try this. These are the things I've already told you. Maybe think about it this way. You go,
we never went to the moon, guys.
Yeah, I've had that.
The most amazing thing is it have taken more technology to fake the moon landing than it took to actually get to the moon.
I don't know, man. I'm at the point of being, seriously considering that it's possible that there are Nazis living under Antarctica. So, I'm way too far down that rabbit hole to be convinced by that one.
I'm not full tinfoil on any of this, but I'm like, so tinfoil guy, tell me more.
Yes, yeah, you gotta chat to the extreme view holders. Like, I think it's important to know what's on the fringes, because it's oftentimes at least pointing towards something that they don't want you to know about. So tinfoil.
But there was okay, wait. Sure, distraction. That reminds me, I don't know. Okay, I know Nate has read Brandon Sanderson. James, are you at all familiar with the author Brandon Sanderson?
No, I don't think I am.
Are we talking about Ten Eye?
No. there's one of his books. It's the most hilarious thing when it's fridge hilarity, or fridge brilliance, as TV tropes would call it. But he sets it up where, what is it? There are people in this world that have the ability to influence others' emotions, and the magic in this world is based on the use of different kinds of metals. And so, someone who can use this metal does this. Someone who can use this metal does this. And then there's aluminum in this world actually tends to nullify all of this stuff, a lot of this stuff. And so people, at one point, he's talking about all this, and he says at one point, people started wearing aluminum bands, aluminum hat bands, so that others would not be able to influence their emotions. And the thing is, the way he sets all this up, you don't even realize what he's doing until you get to the point where, like, wait, people are wearing tinfoil hats to stop being mind controlled, and you're just like, well, of course, people, and then you're like, oh crud, that was a joke.
No, it's a joke so brilliantly set up, you don't get it. You're just like, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and you don't get it until someone points it out to you.
Or you're just walking down the street, and you're like walking down the street, 2 years after you finish the books, and you're like,
ding.
Yeah,
the long Kong, hey? The long Kong.
Anyway,
back to the poem.
Yes, that too. It's also, I think something, a lot of countries are seeing right now, a lot of Western countries are seeing right now. In the Carboniferous epoch, we were promised abundance for all. Yeah. And okay, we're going to completely shut down our economies. Nobody is going to work, or almost nobody is going to work, and then we're going to just write you checks. What are these checks based on? What is the value of these checks deriving from? What are you asking? We're writing you checks. There's money. Yes. And it's one of those things where it seems to be working, but it's gonna catch up to you, and it's like, though we had plenty of money, there was nothing our money could buy. And it's like, so have you heard about Zimbabwe currency?
Yeah, and it's not just deflation of currency, it's also the restriction of supply and of the free market, because once you get to a society that's implementing a universal basic income as being suggested by all communist idealists, once you get to that point, then that defines the baseline of the economy, and they'll already be seizing the means of production and decide, giving the government issued food and the government issued clothing, and by that stage, there's no choice with what to do with your money either. It's basically prison money.
Yeah, well, the idea with the universal basic income is, then people have money for things. Yeah, but okay, if you okay, basically you're mad that, let's say Danny DeVito is angry that Shaq is taller than him. So to get taller, Danny DeVito engineers to have the entire house lifted up, expecting somehow that's going to even things out. No, if you raise the baseline, everything just goes up with it. Yeah. So if the baseline is $0, everybody who would have $0 has $0. And then you'll have 1, 2, 5, 10, a billion, right?
And what if the baseline is 1,000, the rent will go up then, and all those basic costs of living. And what will happen is the government will step in and go, no, you can't put the rent up. Landlords are evil. They're trying to steal your money. We need government housing for all.
Please, God, no. I would literally rather live in a hole in the ground.
And I must point out, Nate has some
government housing. And
Nate has some idea what he's been in the U.S. military, so he has some idea what government housing can be like. I
lucked out. My stint in government housing, I was actually both times got put in new buildings. I was in an experimental new barracks that they had just built. They had we had one squadron that was built like this, and everyone hated us because they called us the Disneylanders, because we had like a nice brand new building while everybody else on like in basic was in buildings from literally 1935. I had to go and work.
I like rustic old buildings myself.
I had to go and work. Like I had to go do duties in their buildings, and I was like, "Holy crap! This place is falling over." I was like, "How many of y'all?" They're like, "How many showers do y'all have?" Somebody told me that you have enough showers to shower an entire bay at one time, and we're like, "We do." They're like, "We have 6, and 4 of them don't work." We're like, "Oh crap!"
We don't have that many showers. We've only got 2 each.
Yeah. I wash my front and my back at the same time. the Asian comfort women actually come and scrub my back for me. What are y'all mad about? Y'all not have those? It's part of the terms of our treaty with Japan after World War II. They sent.
So I'm not sure how we've spiraled into descriptions of showers in army barracks, but maybe we should get back to the poem. And I don't know how long you normally.
Hey, we passed the Flaminian sandstones. All right, some things never get back to the way they were.
We got super liberal, yeah.
Yeah, but no, just I love things. 3 observations about the poem, right? I love things that are easy to read. And somehow Kipling always manages that no matter what he's talking about. You have these poets that like write these very complex, Yoda speak things, and you're like, I mean, I think I get it, but you're mostly showing off. What are you actually talking?
Yeah.
And then you have guys like Kipling who's like, here you go.
He writes quite plainly. He's not a he uses plenty of metaphor, but he doesn't use colorful descriptive language at all. It's just very straightforward. He's not happening.
Now, I will say there's also people.
It doesn't take good plain language can be very entertaining. All it needs is just a little pinch of seasoning, right? And that's what Kipling does. He adds just enough, just enough art to it that you understand what has been done here, and you can really see the genius of it without just completely bedazzling the whole thing.
Just a little bit of curry powder from the colonies to spice things up.
Quite.
Well, I will say there's also people like Shakespeare, where at the time he was actually writing in, or at least a lot of his plays, he was writing in common, easily understood English. It's just the distance has made it a little more difficult for us to understand.
And that's even the case, like we've been saying already, that for your average school child or reader today, this is beyond their grasp because of some of the metaphors that are used, and also even just some of the words that are used. There's verbiage here that is lost to the average English-speaking citizen these days. So this is part of why I'm really I've been reading classics to my sons since they were into reading, and we don't muck around with the baby stuff or the modern stuff. We just get into what were kids of high intelligent white families reading 100 years ago. Let's read that stuff, and it's a gold mine, absolute gold mine of literary treasure and great vocabulary to be absorbed. But we just don't. It doesn't seem to be part of the program anymore. National education.
The other thing I like is that I said I like something that's just well presented without having to be super flowery, and I like something that wants to talk about something stone. It's not talking about cupcakes and spun sugar here, and it's not talking about some fantastical goofiness. This is talking about, foundational stuff, things you need to know, an understanding that you must have to be a successful person. And I like it. I like it when things, give you a bit of meat. And the third thing is, I like that I get to talk about it here on this nigh magical bit of technology, because hopefully we have some liberal dumbass who is going to be very angry at me now for calling him that, but you're a dumbass. So am I. It's fine. As long as we're getting out of it. We might have somebody here who has their sort of, rectotopological geography confused, and they learn something. So I'm glad that these things exist so that we can discuss them, so that maybe someone else who might not have might have rocked it on their own can do it.
And there's one kind of interesting thing for our generation, and like those after us. There's and part of, he doesn't actually say it, but it's kind of part of what's in. It would fit pretty well with the poem. Respect your elders, respect the wisdom of the past, and at the same time, for our generation, there's also, okay, boomer, and which sounds like a complete contradiction. But the thing is, for people on our political kind of space, part of the reason there is that is because, like, once we started to catch on to a few things, we realize, wait a second, they completely failed to pass on these things. Like, there's this big chain of wisdom handed from generation to generation, and then it reached the mid 20th century, and a lot of it,
they abandoned it. They
Yeah.
knowingly abandoned it, and they did it because a serpent got in their ear. They were raised on television. They were raised on mass media controlled by foreign interests and anti-American, anti-white, anti-Christian elements. And, forgive them. They know not what they do. The boomers are the most selfish and lost generation in a long time, but they're a product of a program, So I think we gotta forgive them and take away their ability to fuck things up any worse.
Yeah. What I would say is that I don't think this is all passed down in an unbroken chain. I think there are often generational sets like this. It's just that, by and large, they fail to make history. You don't hear about them. It's just like everybody thinks music from the olden times is better. No, it was filled with just as much cotton candy, filth, and stupidity as today. It's just that stuff doesn't endure. It doesn't make it through the filter of time. And so we forget. It doesn't become a copybook heading. And now we have Twitter archiving every dumbass thing that's ever been in the last 5 years. So we will never forget how stupid we were. Our far ancestors won't look back and be like, yes, the great wisdom of Noob Slayer 525252XXO.
Yeah, I think what will happen is they'll look back and they'll go, oh, they had this technology called the internet, which elevated every human voice to some kind of equality. What a stupid idea that was. Why would you do that?
Well, at the same time, though, like, if that wasn't there, like, nobody would be hearing this conversation. And
we're in it.
Everyone would be
like,
just listening.
We were just timeless overlords then. We were time lords then, just looking from the bigger picture. But yeah, while we're in it, we're very grateful.
Well, and also, like, it's kind of a weird thing because, like, it gave idiots the ability to speak to the entire world, but also, like, it gave very smart people who were not a part of the system, who were not part of the establishment.
Yes, such as us. Great minds like ours, brothers. Look at all our books. We are the smart ones. Listen to us. Don't listen to them.
My books are in another room.
But it gave because before our before the internet, before at least the late 90s, like you basically had what ABC and CBS and NBC and the New York Times told you, and that was just reality. And most people never heard anything outside of that. And you can see from the actions of people like Mark Zuckerberg and Susan and Jack Dorsey, that they're desperately trying to get back to that kind of state. And so, but
that's because when the signal gets out and when the truth finally gets moving and catches up to people, it's irrefutable. People look at it and go, "Holy crap! This is what I've been looking for this whole time."
Well, the thing about the truth is, if you deny it, it kind of kills you. Deny reality, you probably end up dead pretty soon.
Well, yes, it's the gods of the copybook headings with terror and slaughter return.
That's right.
I will say,
the
the
wages of sin is death.
The wages of sin is death. The good news is that price has been paid, and the good news is that even the eponymous gods here of the copybook headings, they don't have to kill you. You'll note, if you are teachable, they will simply teach you.
They'll save you time and time again.
Not. If you are not teachable, then they kill you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's maybe not even them. It's just being around what they bring with them that kills you.
It's ignoring them for long enough. That is where the terror and slaughter arrives. Okay, so we've been going for just over an hour. So,
chunky.
Nate, did you have any last thoughts you wanted to put in on the poem or anything we've said since?
A different book from a different book by a different prophet. Micah said, "Know this, humans, what is good." Right? To love justice, to do mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. This is what is good. And that's even simpler, I think, than the 10 Commandments. But it still sums up just about all of it. And if we can do that, then the other things in life are going to fall into line. And so, if you ever need a compass, if you ever need something just to point you to north, to tell you which direction to go, hang on to that. Hang on to those 3 things. That's all you have to do.
James, how about you? Any last thoughts closing us out?
Yeah, well, just to keep it on the poem as much as I can with the minute I have left, and to piggyback off what you're saying, Nate, you're presenting there an example of copybook heading wisdom, and that's not, I don't believe at all that Kipling was trying to diminish its value by calling it that, merely that was how it was learnt by children at the time. And what I like about Kipling's poems generally, and this one specifically, is that he is not actually prescribing any particular action. He's not saying this is what you need to do to be good, to be civilizational, to be eugenic. He's actually just standing back and observing what happens, and he's making operational promises. He's saying, if you do this, if you ignore the copybook headings, I promise you this is what the result will be. And guess what? The copybook headings say that too. So it's a real, the intelligence behind these poems. Kipling was a very, very bright mind, and I would urge any of the viewers, if they're watching a poetry podcast, they probably would do this anyway, but get the text in front of you and read it over and over a few times and really absorb it, and look up any of the terms or words that don't make immediate sense to you, because we are part of a broken chain of wisdom, and if we want to improve it, then we need to actively find our edge and develop our vocabulary and our understanding. So, I think it's great to have a big dictionary next to the book you're reading, and if you need to open that dictionary lots, then it's a good book to read.
But
damn it, modern society, what have you done to me?
But give me a second. So my one last thing here is just browsing through bits of the poem, and began to believe it was true that all is not gold that glitters, and two make four, and it is both amusing and horrifying that we have arrived at the point where people are now literally, like, quote unquote serious people are now literally arguing that 2 and 2 does not necessarily mean 4, and it's like,
Yeah, that's white supremacy.
it's like,
That's a colonialist view of mathematics.
and it's
Two
like
and two actually equal my feelings of joy. Yeah, and my feelings about maths are far more important than what 2 and 2 actually equal.
I'm just going to say that if you're colonizing the truth, you've built in a good place, and anyone who doesn't want to come, well, screw them.
All I know is I don't want to be driving across a bridge built by someone who's shaky on the idea that 2 and 2 make 4. Okay.
That won't be the only sticky thing.
All right. So, well, thank you both for joining me tonight. I hope you both had a fun time, and I am going to close us out. God be with you.
Also with you.
Likewise. Thank you, gentlemen.